Hello everyone. Sabina Spielrein, a Russian Jew experiencing the final stage of hysteria, is brought to a psychiatric hospital. Soon, she meets Carl Gustav Jung, a young and talented psychiatrist, inspired by the work of Sigmund Freud. He is deeply impressed by the great psychoanalyst and decides to try one of Freud's methods, where the psychologist treats the patient through long and frank conversations. During the first meeting, Sabina confesses that she cannot control her own body due to constant violence against her. In a terrible dream, she sees her father's hand. Jung shares his first impressions of the new patient with his wife, but all she is interested in is another pregnancy and the attempt to give birth to a boy. At the second meeting, Sabina talks about her dreams and strange coincidences that occur in real life. Jung does not believe in coincidences and is mystically inclined, but reacts with skepticism. When the woman throws off her cloak, he helps her pick it up, but this scares Sabina. A few days later, Jung goes on a business trip, and the woman begins to go mad with longing, playing with food and bathing in mud to attract the attention of the staff and the director of the psychiatric hospital. Sabina is forced to take a bath, which finally calms her down. Returning from his trip, Jung visits the patient and offers to work with him. His wife becomes an assistant for a psychological test, answering associative questions. Sabina shows extraordinary abilities and interest in psychiatry, easily composing a psychological portrait of Emma and realizing that she is the psychologist's wife. A few weeks later, Emma gives birth to a daughter and apologizes to her husband for not being able to give him an heir. She is very wealthy and provides Jung with everything, but she cannot give him a son. During further sessions, Sabina talks about strange dreams and mystical creatures. She also confesses that physical punishments evoke various desires in her. From an early age, she felt pleasure from punishments and did everything to feel it again. 2 years later, Jung travels to Austria to meet Freud in person. The young psychotherapist talks about the interesting case of Sabina and receives valuable advice from the more eminent doctor. Freud interprets any clinical case through a sexual context, which Jung finds not always appropriate, as people are driven not only by desire, but also by fear, anger, and other emotions. In the evening, Jung shares his secrets and dreams, but Freud finds a logical explanation, convincing his pupil that it is the only correct option. Later, Jung shares his thoughts with Sabina, who seems to be the only one who understands the young doctor. The girl has become a former patient and is studying at the university to become a psychologist. She has a brilliant future, so Jung values her opinion. She believes that everything cannot be reduced to a single cause and tells about a dream that soon became Jung's reality. This reinforces the idea that coincidence can be interpreted by the mind in a mystical way. Freud writes a letter to Jung, asking him to treat his first pupil, Otto Gross. He is a wonderful person and was a good specialist in the past, but is too absorbed in problems related to his life. Otto thinks and talks exclusively about entertainment and numerous lovers. He seduced all the patients and does not regret it, suggesting that Jung do the same with Sabina. At the next meeting, the woman realizes that she cannot be a good psychologist. She kisses Jung and asks him to visit her whenever he wants to continue their close communication. A few days later, Jung consults with his patient to understand whether he should break medical ethics. Otto firmly believes that with such beauties, time should be spent on something other than talking about psychology. Soon, Otto solves all his problems and engages in various activities with a nurse before stealing a ladder and escaping from the psychiatric clinic. Deciding to take his patient's advice, Jung visits Sabina. The woman has certain inclinations that make their leisure time more interesting and varied. Years pass, and the Jung family moves to a new country house. Emma cannot imagine life without her husband and gives him a yacht with red sails. She suspects that Jung has a mistress, but is willing to endure the betrayal to keep the family together. These words affect Jung's moral principles, and he decides to break up with Sabina. The woman humiliates herself for the right to remain friends and allows him to be rough and cruel with her, but continues to stay close. Sometime later, Jung and Freud meet again to share their views on psychology. Freud firmly believes that all complexes and diseases are related to experience and its interpretation. Jung pays attention to strange details and increasingly talks about the idea that any coincidence is a pattern that a person could not catch. He focuses on feelings, dreams, and the mystical component of human life, realizing that not everything is so straightforward and the world of psychology cannot hang on one hook. Freud fears bold theories, as scientists might ridicule him, and he is not ready to risk his reputation. Angry at the stubborn psychotherapist, Jung takes out his anger on Sabina, who is willing to fulfill any desire. A little later, Jung and Freud try to reconcile by working on a new patient and reaching a common diagnosis. During a yacht trip, Freud informs him that he received a letter with information that Jung is involved with his patient. The pupil denies this fact, then breaks up with Sabina, fearing exposure and disgrace. A few days later, it becomes known that the provocative letters to Freud and Sabina's parents were sent by Emma to keep her husband. Soon, Sabina comes to Jung again, but now as a psychotherapist, because she needs help again. Her parents arranged a scandal, believing that their daughter is still unwell, so the sessions need to be resumed. After paying for the appointment, the woman begins to involve Freud in certain games, informing him of the details of their meetings. The doctor is not ready to deal with Jung's personal life problems and asks to resolve this issue in correspondence. Sabina receives a harsh response and realizes that she will have to forget about her connection with her doctor. Sometime later, Sabina begs Jung to write the truth to Freud, as she wants to become his patient. Jung and Freud go to America to conquer new horizons. Along the way, Jung continues to tell his strange dreams and demands the same openness from his mentor. Freud is too afraid to spoil his reputation and remains secretive, leading to a quarrel with Jung. He no longer sees him as a teacher and inspirer, as their views on psychology are radically different. In 1910, Sabina graduated and became an excellent psychologist. The woman is confident that Freud's theory is not only imperfect, but also contradictory. She is ready to consider people's problems from a completely different angle, threatening the entire reputation of the eminent psychotherapist. According to Sabina, relationships can lead not only to self-destruction and the protection of one's eye, but also to the creation of something more beautiful than the personality. Jung is very interested in listening to this. Soon, Sabina refuses her husband and decides to return to Austria. In 1912, Sabina meets Freud and literally shatters his entire philosophy. Soon, Jung meets the psychotherapist and also criticizes him. This hurts Freud's self-esteem, causing him to fall to the floor and nearly bid farewell to life. In correspondence, Freud and Jung quarrel even more, because they have completely different worldviews and attitudes towards psychology. A year later, the pregnant Sabina visits Jung's home and meets his wife. Jung is happy that his former patient has a family, but is sad that this child will not be his. Sabina was the only one he truly loved. During the conversation, Jung tells a terrible dream in which he saw a bloody avalanche covering all of Europe. Sabina does not understand the meaning of these words, although she connects his dream with mysticism. Soon she leaves for Russia, and in 1914, the First World War begins. Otto died of hunger in Berlin in 1919. Freud was expelled from Vienna by the Nazis and died of cancer in London in 1939. Sabina returned to her homeland, where she was executed by the Nazis as a Jew in 1941. Jung became the leading psychologist in the world and lived until 1961. This is the end of the movie. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more videos like this.